now so that people can interact a little bit. As I mentioned, for many of you that I see here on the Zoom, and then those who have mentioned that they're here in the Facebook, there is a commonality of many of you in a space of some form of leadership, some form of potential project orientation, we call it entrepreneurship, we call it leadership, we call it whatever we want. It's just simply riding the waves of creativity that our lives are designed for, this body is designed for. And so as we come to a clear recognition that what we are here to create is not the means in which we are to come to some conclusion about who we are, the identity of who we are based on our creation. Right, because this is a common theme of looking to find one's purpose, and that purpose wrapped up within some creation, some form of creation, some project, business, venture, career path, etc. And this is a very dangerous trap of mind to perpetuate its need for attention and its need for a constant reassurance as to where it's headed, what it's needing to be doing in this moment. Because what it did at the last moment, etc. So the means in which we're cultivating focus from this standpoint, from what we're approaching here today, may be a little bit different than what we've generally heard about focus. But at the same time, the principles always remain the same. It's just that we're doing it from a standpoint in which we're not risking, in a sense, the misidentification with what we do as who we are, or what we're creating as kind of another box in which one may feel themselves to, they're putting themselves in. And of course, if one is sincere in their inward practice, it always comes back down to the depth of their inward practice, their inward seeking to know thyself, know oneself, and know oneself to the exclusion of all changing appearances. So to the exclusion of all changing thoughts, feelings, sensations, identifications, conclusions of mind, beliefs, etc. Who am I? Who are you? And another way of putting this is well, what doesn't perish at death? What remains at death? Because all of those things we spoke about are within the experience of the experience of the human nature. So we're looking to inwardly know and seek to find and realize, recognize what remains at death and what will always be. And so if the sincerity of that seeking is, or the sincerity of that knowing, that realization has occurred, if it has occurred, to the degree in which that is sincere, to the degree in which that is true, will of course ease the constant need for mind to be, attaching itself to identities, attaching itself to things in which one is doing or creating or bringing to the world as another, addition or subtraction of who one believes themselves to be. And in our current world and society, this is very much represented in, the perspective and the kind of mindset behind being the best, being number one, or winning. Being the best, being number one, or winning. This is all having to do with the nature of one who is in a constant mean of comparison. So of course it starts with where oneself is and how the own workings of one's mind, of the constant feeling of comparison within various situations, good or bad, this or that, is it on my purpose, not on my purpose, all these things. And of course from that root, from that source, then that manifests within the entirety of the world of the seeming other, the other being, in which one perceives as potential competition, potential threat in some sense, and one that fuels the fire for one to continue to become or be the best. And so we see that this is, just as an initial piece, this is just simply the core root as to where, that constant, that feeling of identification that comes within one's creation, within one's manifestation. And I'm pointing this out and I'm speaking on this simply because generally the intensity and degree of focus and concentration is going to be, it's going to be used, if we want to, term it that way, or if we want to recognize that, focus and concentration supports us in one thing and one thing only, and that is to realize the true nature of oneself. And as one continues to find themselves in a depth of this sincere inquiry, this sincere looking to find the truth of this moment, they will see that whether that's inward or outward, there is no difference. There is really no difference of the inward looking or outward looking. It is all the same. It is all whole. And it is all appearances and happenings that are happening in front of the pure sense of awareness, in which is not only at the background, it is within, and it is all around. It's all pervading. So when we're traversing the path of looking to find this singular truth, it's a very masculine way of looking at it in a certain sense. The masculine energy of seeking or spirituality or personal development is, I am destroying all illusions, all falsehood. Everything has to go, and I'm looking to find the singular self, the best, the one, everything. That's what I'm looking for. And we see this depicted in our social media posts or posts of others that are very much around the idea of, I need to, for example, fully step into my purpose, or I need to fully be this way, or I need to finally take this, step in this type of thing. And even as we're speaking that, we can see that the intensity of the emotion around it, the energy behind it, is some sort of, it brings a certain sense of lack, because the nature of the intensity of those words and these phrases is almost, in a sense, a means to motivate oneself, to overcompensate for what one is not seemingly fully stepping into, etc., etc. And to further perpetuate this identity of the one who's on an awakening path, on a journey, on a personal development quest, and the hero's journey, etc., which is not a bad thing. But we can see that as one continues to be more sincere and mature in their process of realizing the truth and knowing the truth, which again we see that it's not really a process, it's just a binary yes or no type of thing. As one continues to become more mature in that, we see that there is a lack of integrity when we say things like, I need to fully do this, or I need to step 100% into this, or I need to finally, let go of this completely, all these types of terms. And we could give ourselves some sort of leeway in this and say that the English language we're using is a little tricky in this sense. It's a little tricky. And because of the trickiness, we get caught in those traps, quite easily. So I hope that helps to gain some certain clarity with what we're looking at, because what we're focusing on today when it comes to the intensity of increasing our focus, this is going to happen it's going to happen in kind of two steps. And it's not much different than what many of you are probably already practicing, or have practiced in the past, or have heard about. But what we're getting to tonight, and just in this space, is how are we allowing for, or how are we surrendering to the reality that if we are to, for instance, know that, let's say, gratitude is the source of all manifestation, like the only way in which one manifests something is if they are in the sense, the depth of their realization and recognition of gratitude, a perpetual sense of gratitude for existence, because recognizing that existence is you. All of existence, all of that is occurring within and without you is you. It is a part of you because it is your creation. And to see anything but that, or to fantasize about anything but that, or imagine anything but that, is only in a certain light bringing one's attention away. In other words, one's focus and concentration away from the direct now. Just this, I've been referring to the term of just this, just this, and there's nothing after that. I'm not saying anything after that, because it is really just this. And of course we can use terms like pointing to the now, the present moment, this singular existence, whatever. But the more we describe it, the further we get away from it. And so when we use meditations, for instance, like a resting in one sense of being, the center point in the chest and the heart, and we really abide in that space and we return here. The resting in this sense of being is a resting in the singular point of focus where one can actually abide in the purity of love and acceptance and gratitude and patience and discipline and all of the different principles and terms in which, as one is identified or kind of moving within mind of past and future, they believe like they have to ignite these things, like it's an action. And in a sense it is, in a sense we need to practice patience or practice discipline or practice these various things to ignite the remembrance that the essence of all of this comes back down to the essence of the self, that pure sense of being, in which could be probably most accurately described as love bliss or Satchit Ananda, or these various terms in which various traditions have used. And so that singular point of focus is a continual return to that pure awareness, in which is aware of, and this comes back to that topic of inner and outer, it's aware of the inner and the outer both as a spontaneous happening and arising. So which means, so for in this case, say we're in this Q&A, and from my experience, this is naturally how it generally occurs. Someone may ask a question, and then an answer may also come. And abiding in that sense of awareness brings you to the place in which is aware of both of them in the same light. So there's an awareness of the question and awareness of the answer, as if it was the same self, the same being in a certain sense. Of course, there's a practicality with understanding that there's this physical other person and there's this physical body. But by truly abiding in that sense of awareness, there truly is a lack of a feeling of doership, which allows for the arising of the question and the arising of the answer and the arising of the conversation that flows from that. And in a sense, this is not anything new, I would say, for any of you, because you've all been in those conversations which have just flowed, those experiences in which have just happened, like maybe you're playing sports or these things, where that has arisen and that has occurred. Right, so tell me if that has been the case and if that resonates with you. And then, of course, if you're on Facebook again, just say hello. It'd be great to make sure to see who's there and who's present. But at least what I'm getting to here is that the singular point of focus will always continue to come back to being aware as the singular point of focus, being aware. Because from the vantage point of awareness, one can continue to abide in that place where the vibrational essence of this body-mind system comes into a sense of balance. And from that sense of balance, what then arises is what needs to arise. So what I mean by that is the actions that need to arise, the thoughts of what one must do, the inspiration, the, feeling like one needs to call somebody, or, the happenings will begin to arise. And because the attachment is not involved in it and playing into the drama of the happenings from that singular point of focus, this is what allows for one to really be able to decipher and feel into the body firstly. Right, like truly tune into the intuition of the body, because intuition, of course, is not mind, it is body, and it is the whole entirety of the body. And so one can see that, firstly, one may initially notice, and even in the space right now, you may initially notice that the thoughts, because they're maybe so out of whack or misaligned, the thoughts are just happening, they're just coming, and all of these things are occurring, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And from the body standpoint, we see that it is all just not interesting. It's not interesting. None of it is interesting, because the body's resting in that sense of peace, which reflects one abiding as awareness. So you are not the experience of peace. You are that pure awareness. But what is reflected potentially is the experience of peace in the body, or bliss in the body. And from that standpoint, from that foundation, it is much easier to focus and pierce through the illusion of the forest of thoughts and the things that are arising. Because, firstly, from this place of concentration and focus, which again is, we could say is an inward focus, but we see that there is no difference here, because from this singular point of focus, inner and outer is basically, in a sense, it's all outer, because it's all appearing in front of you. And so from that place, then it is much easier to take action, for action to naturally unfold, and action from the most practical, basic light, which always comes back to the very clear standpoint that action never needs to be this grand action or this grand happening or this grand movement. It is always just generally a very small action. Like if I need to go to the grocery store, well, the action is to just get up out of the chair, to take the headphones out of my ears, to walk out, So there are so many micro actions that are occurring that need your attention. Because if it doesn't have my attention, I certainly can get out of the chair and fall over, and then I try and grab the door and I slip and I hit my hand, or we can see that the basis of just the simplest of actions don't even have one's attention. And then thus one is worrying about whether the manifestation will happen or whether the creation is going to occur in the light in which one desires. But of course, how could it? How could one potentially even make it to the grocery store if they can't even get up out of their chair? So the singular point of focus and concentration, many times when it comes to manifestation, which, this is the other side of it, which we'll get into, is, a focus on the image of creation. What is one desiring to create? What does that look like? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What are the details of it? Who does one need to attract to support that? There's many other aspects to that imagining, the vision, the fantasy that arises as one continues to pierce the veil of the distractions and continue to focus upon less so the image of the creation and more so the feeling of what is desiring to be created. But, they come hand in hand. But of course we can see that this is useless if the attention on that pure sense of awareness, that pure sense of being, is not the fundamental focus. It's not the single point of concentration before all else, before everything else, comes in and gets in the way and wants to manifest and wants to move itself and wants to be created. So, what I'm getting at here is, hey Dan, hey Adriana, Facebook there. What I'm clearly getting at here is that the essence of realizing one's true nature, self-realization, as a focal point of attention, is putting the cart in front of, putting the cart behind the horse. It is coming to that place where one knows themselves truthfully. One truly knows who they are, and because of that knowing, one would never desire to move their attention away from that knowing, because that is where the highest of high exists. That is where the self, the supreme self, exists. And from that knowing, from that realization, from that experience, that direct knowing, that direct experience, is the love and the bliss and the joy and the fulfillment in which one desires through manifestation of some desire or creation or insert, etc., etc. So there's kind of this simultaneity in the message here, in the sense that it is not that we necessarily need to leave our lives to realize the true nature, realize ourselves. It is a common theme that that's the case. But of course, the potentially more difficult path is one who can embody the nature of their day-to-day experience and acknowledge and respect the desires in which are bringing one's attention to, so a specific desire that is pulling your attention, pulling your focus, and basically saying, I'm not going to go away until you fulfill me. Or I'm not going to go away, I'm not going to leave you alone until you focus upon me. And so, as a practice of self-realization, so say someone is not self-realized, and from a calibration standpoint, that would be below 640. So for those that have been following the topic on LOC and calibration, that is below 640. So you're in and out, maybe you're spiritual, maybe you're not, maybe you've tasted the fruit of non-duality, so you're kind of in and out of it. You have times where you think you know it, other times where you're like, I just thought I knew it, And so there's this kind of oscillation with that. And because of that, there's also an oscillation or a doubt in existence. In other words, a doubt in one's life, a doubt in one's path, a doubt in one's purpose, a doubt in one's creation, etc. And so we see that there's a constant mirror effect that is occurring where as one is focused upon the nature of themselves, the truth of themselves, the sense of being within themselves, and practicing this focal point, I am that I am, the singular focus on just being aware of awareness itself. This is the fastest and most direct path to realization, in conjunction with receiving something like the Rasa transmission, which just purifies everything, gets everything out of the way, so that self-inquiry can just be rapid in its approach to the knowing of truth. And from that vantage point, then what one is experiencing simultaneously within the day-to-day experience, the human existence, is a clear recognition that there is nothing that is spiritual, not spiritual, enlightened, not enlightened. And really, the reality of their day-to-day path, the reality of their walking moment-to-moment life is the self. It is the supreme. It is God. It is the highest high. It is the most secret of Buddhist teachings. It is the grand Himalayan yogi texts. It is all of that. It is the supreme. It is all that you've ever desired. It's everything that you've been seeking in your search for spirituality, in your search within all these books and teachers, etc. It has all of it for you. Everything that you could imagine, the blueprint of reality, is existing on the very path, within the very shoes, within the very awareness in which you are already in, existing in here and now. And so, then of course, arising from that, the question would be, well then why not just focus supremely on that existence, supremely on the direct sense of being and awareness in which has always been abiding and residing just here in this moment, always in your life, no matter if you go back 20 years, 15 years, or you move ahead 10, 15 years, it will always be that same awareness present here now that is calling for you to realize and recognize that it is the Supreme Self. It is the highest of high. It is the archangel, blah, blah, blah. It is everything. It is the self, the singular self, that exists in a fractal amongst the plethora of existence. So when we're questioning, we're asking, how do I increase focus? How do I increase my concentration, etc.? The question is more so, have you realized what you desire truly to focus upon? And from the pointer in which is being spoken here, it is yourself in which you're desiring to focus upon. The essence, the truest essence of self, the background to this very moment, the self in which is untainted by all the things that are arising and happening, because from that point of focus, from that singular standpoint, from that singular laser, everything that appears to you, everything that arises to you, everything that comes to you, that is a part of your dharma, a part of your path, a part of your mission here, that is karmically set for you within this body, within this matrix, within this makeup, then that is what will arise, that is what will be focused upon, that is what will manifest in a very instantaneous flow. Very efficient flow, I might add. And so, as you are all here, and you may be feeling into this space, this truth, this energy, and you may already be in the heart, you can focus upon in the heart. I'm going to give you 2 places to focus upon, whether it's the center of the chest or in the center of the third eye. And if the eyes are closed, the eyes can be closed. They don't have to be. But from the standpoint here, we intensify the focus with that masculine-like energy, right? So whether you're focusing upon the third eye and you're focusing with that intensity of energy, And whatever the image of the self is needed for you to focus upon, whether that's the image of the Guru, whether that's the image of the self, whether that's the idea of God, whether that's Om, whatever the focus, the focal point for you is, we're utilizing that as just our means of intensity, to intensify the degree of, penetration, we could say. And that can be done in the heart or the third eye, doesn't matter. But as you're increasing the intensity of this focus, as you're increasing the intention of this focus, as much as it's becoming one-pointed, almost like a singular dot, what I'd like to open up and suggest and invite you to surrender to is the opening up for the entirety of this focus to kind of send itself throughout the entire body. This doesn't mean you're moving your attention away from where you're focusing. This just simply opens you up for the nature of the self, the nature of the blissfulness of the body to merge throughout the entirety of every cell. Because the singular point of focus in this exercise, that singular intention, is what makes way for the interest of mind, the distractions, the conversations, etc., to simply dissipate, to not be not have your attention on them for this time. And from this place, you are surrendering to the opening of this concentration and focus that can completely engulf the entire body, yet still be focused upon, whether that's in the chest, whether that's in the third eye. And nothing else is important to you other than the direct knowing of this self and the bliss of the self in which fills you. So it is empty, yet it is also full. And you've opened the doorway here to continue the intensity of that focus, but yet still opening to the ease of love in which pours through every crevice of the body. And so, you can open the eyes slowly if you like, if they're closed, or you can keep them closed. Just rest in this. I'm going to simply open up to reflect with all of you to see how do you feel in that space, what's arisen from this attention. But don't rush that. Stay in there as long as you'd like, and you don't need to say anything either. It's just to open up the conversation. And then, of course, if there's questions that are arising here, if there's things that would like to be covered, then let's please let's just kind of jump into that. You can go with that. I will continue on this method a little bit further towards the end and just clarify some things, but hopefully we got everyone at least in this field. And so we can actually see here that the focus in which we have upon this sense of being, this sense of awareness, is a never-ending pull, as one has really truly ignited the interest in putting the spiritual seeking journey to an end. And this has been a conversation that has been coming forth through me for some time. Naturally, as I went through the receiving of the Rasa transmission, and I've had further unfoldings from there and from that, which have given me more clarity as to the clear recognition that self-realization is really, in a sense, the beginning of existence, of truth, of true living. And until that has occurred for one, then there's really, in my view, in my space at this time, anyone who comes in contact with me, my view is that you're ready to know this truth, and to know it completely, not a dabble, not a here and there, but to know it completely. And I've continuously pointed to the receiving of the Rasa transmission as potentially, at this point, what I wouldn't say, I wouldn't get as dogmatic to think it is the only and fastest or most efficient. I would say it is one of the most efficient means to the end of seeking. And to clarify and to just drill home this piece here, that because many people, even advanced seekers, don't actually see the importance or we may actually look past how much of a gift or how important the end of seeking truly would be, or what that really could be like, because there's such an intense identity with seeking, with unfolding, with more and more healings and all these things, and it really comes down to the fact that what one is seeking, at the end of every last healing session, or every new epiphany, or every new understanding, is of course what one desires to feel in a constant light, and not in this ecstatic, orgasmic type of way, but in a way in which one can be content to know who they are and what they are, and to rest in the peace of that, so that the focus can just naturally arise. Concentration can just naturally be the default. And that default knowing is what brings one the ability to be able to intensely focus upon whatever it is that they are desiring to focus upon. Not as a means of feeling they need to add something to their life any longer, but as a means that this is the highest excitement, this is the way this is the way the game looks to manifest itself in this time, in this moment. And so, that's kind of a piece that I'm putting in there, and it's more of my attention is moving into it at this time to continue to open up the availability within our network for everyone to receive the Rasa transmission in an ongoing light, so that truly the end can be seen, and the intensity of that inward focus can be then developed much more easily. And what I would say in the meantime is a recognition that the meditation that we've just practiced, which is a singular focus on that essence of the true essence of being, and this is also represented as the singular focus on the transmission, the energy of the realized being, the guru, the master, the teacher, the Buddha, the Christ, the Deva, the God, the goddess, whoever that is to you, and potentially there are many, but it is a recognition that there is one singular being that is represented in the divine blueprint of all beings. Each manifestation of this angelic human body is of the divine blueprint, and it is the Buddha, it is the Christ, it is the highest of high, but that must be known, and that must be deepened into and embodied in a way in which is inconceivable by mind. But to focus upon the image of the Guru, the Master, who or what that represents for you, is such a beautiful and humbling piece, because one recognizes their place in this game. They recognize the beings, the elders, the ancestors that have walked before. They recognize the lineage, the energy of lineage in which is passed down for a very long time, and we could say forever. and and you will be blessed. You will receive the transmission of energy. You will receive that grace. You know, that receiving it through rasa is one avenue. Receiving it through divine darshan of an image of a being. Receiving it through a physical master. Receiving it through looking at a picture. You know, these are all ways in which that the receiving of that can happen. But you know, we can't kid ourselves to the fact that that is the way in which all information, knowledge, wisdom, energy has always been transmitted and given and bestowed, is through the master, through the teacher, to the student, and continually moving through that. And so, you know, that infinite student, that eternal student mindset or heart set, you know, that, and which is this meditation we did today, is the singular focus on knowing oneself, of knowing truth, and abiding in that sense of being, and allowing for that to transcend through every aspect of your being, every aspect of your sensual existence. This singular practice, this point of focus, will transcend and it will be brought forth into all of your other tools, other means that you're using, and in your creations, in your projects, in what you're desiring to manifest and bring to life, because you've surrendered to the higher order. And so if the desire is true, if the desire is sincere, then it is a part of that higher order. And because it's a part of that higher order, and you're focused only upon that higher order and the knowing of truth, you know, within the plethora of desires, the fractal of desires that present themselves, and just knowing what really is for you, what is really calling you, what is really presenting itself. You know, this is what manifests here. So, you know, I'm going to just continue open to questions. I know some questions here in the Facebook, so I'll answer those. If there's anyone in this Zoom call, if you'd like to talk, just say so, or you could just write your question. It'd be great to hear from some of you too, though. So first question from Andrew is, what is the matrix? I don't know. I don't know what the matrix is. You know, we could say that it potentially could be you know, the fabric of thought, feeling, and sensation, and the energetics that work from the oscillation of thought and feeling, which manifest as sensation. You know, thought and feeling being the masculine and feminine polarity, which perpetuate mind, they perpetuate existence, and they are on, you know, 15 dimensions of 50 dimensions of energetics. Those energetics are happening on very dense and very subtle levels, and that creates the framework of what one could define as the matrix. You know, as a very broad look at what we're pointing to when we speak these terms. Of course, if we're looking at it from more of an earthly term, then, you know, that may get into a different type of conversation. But the reality is, the matrix is the Maya, it's the illusion, and it is the truth, it is the self, the singular absolute self, in which is within, without, around, nowhere. You know, it can't even be spoken, but yet it is. And it is to know this above all else. If one continues to just know this, because this is, we could say that, you know, as much as one coming to the realization is the end of seeking, it is the beginning of unfoldment, because one recognizes that as one returns only to the abidance as the truth, as the absolute, then what only happens from there is a perpetual unfolding. It is an infinite unfolding that happens from there. And that can manifest in many different ways, depending on the being, depending on their karma. So the reality is, the reality is that from the standpoint of what many are deeming or defining as the matrix, this is just simply what one is initially seeing as an illusion. What one may have believed to be true is not true. It is an illusion. It is a trap of falsehood. It is a trap of fear. And that trap of fear and that trap of falsehood, it must be seen through. And it is perpetually seen through knowing oneself. And then one is guided through the illusion, through the Maya, through the infinite eternity of Maya, which is the feminine. It is the womb. It is the mother. Because mother is Maya. But it is the creation as well, so it is to be loved. It is to be seen through and to be loved. This is the balance of masculine and feminine. This is the balance of Shiva Shakti. This is the balance of the Supreme. Do you ever get tired or drained? What do you do when you feel this way? Yes, I get tired. I go to sleep. I mean, when your body's in balance, you will be energized throughout the day. I enjoy sleeping because my life continues through the dreams. So now, at this present time, I've actually been lowering the amount of sleep because I recognize, well, the dream time is basically the same as this time, as in the same happenings are occurring, the same experiences. It's basically like it's like a crossing over of the same life. So so in that case, then it is in my view, it's better just to be in this, just be in this reality, unless the body needs sleep, and then use it for sleep. But again, as one is lowering the consumption of dense foods, as one is abiding in their truth, which is abiding in self-realization, realizing their true nature, as one is continuing to live what they love and pour their heart into their creation, their projects, their service, you may need less sleep. Your body may just calm itself, it'll balance itself. You'll be able to go much longer. And all I recognize with sleep is that it's much more of a habit than a necessity, just like eating is. Eating is more so a habit than a necessity. Question. Beginner's mind open to guidance. Yes. I see the matrix as a trapping grid creating by time. That could be the case. That's surely a good example of it. It's mind. The nature of mind is time, space and time. A way to look at the matrix also in a more really practical light is looking at something like the Mayan calendar. The Mayan calendar has a really beautiful approach to representing the movements of time. But it's really not much different than looking at the tarot, looking at astrology, looking at the Kabbalah. These are all breakdowns of the matrix of existence on all layers, on all subtleties. So there's different. You can look at different forms of it and understand it in different ways. It's true. So if there's further questions, let's just keep them coming then. And it's also to say the matrix is because it's existing on all levels of subtlety in some sense. So even as we evolve, for instance, out of the matrix of time created by the Gregorian calendar, which has created a matrix of fear, it will evolve. Okay, say we move to the Mayan calendar. In a sense, it is still a matrix. It is still it's just a different form of it. And it is a grid in which is potentially more aligned. It is more aligned with source. But that's an ever unfolding, recognition, realization, and it's similar to, of course, as one comes to a certain point on their path where they recognize no matter what path they go down, whether they're reading something about Buddhism or, Kabbalah or, astrology or this or that, you find it's the same teaching everywhere. It's the same representation. It's just in different words, same techniques, same methods, and they're all constructed in very different ways, very different perspectives. But I do feel, as we are all coming to the truth and the nature of ourselves here and now, in a much more accelerated way, as I mentioned many times, everything that at least I'm presenting is as everything that can support you in the most efficient light, most accelerated path. So there's no delay. You can come to this now. It is not just for the select. It is not just for the few. It is not just for the guru. It is for everyone. So if the willingness is there, then the tools will present themselves. Question: Mercury direct joins the Aries new moon today, also Chiron, wounded healer, traveling into Aries in 2 days for 7 years. As Mars Aries generally considered masculine in nature, I'm wondering if you might comment further around taking action in light of healing the masculine or bringing forward the divine masculine. That's a really good point, Dan. Thanks for adding that. You know, the nature of what I've spoken about 2018, you know, as much as we're seeing, you know, the rise of the feminine, the rise of the goddess, and, you know, all these different terms, I truly intuitively felt within myself, and, you know, in reflections with many others, and just seeing and tuning into the collective field, is that the 2018 path and the time we're in is certainly a very masculine warrior-like energy, in which requires a certain stability in the foundation for the times to come. And, you know, we've had our time of really moving into the feminine and starting to tune into that through, you know, from say 2011, you know, even going back to 2008 to 2017, which was an opening to the feminine, opening to the higher realms, you know, psychedelic culture really open to that, the festival culture, you know, new age, all of this. But a lot of that also took it to a degree in which left people, and in my case, in some sense, it left me, you know, without the tools of the masculine, in which I'd always, you know, were always useful. They were certainly useful. And so the power in the masculine energy that can come and support the woman to lead, with the masculine in the support in many ways, and vice versa. You know, it's kind of like it's kind of going both ways, and it really doesn't have a definition to it. But the masculine energy is always to penetrate, and it's penetrating with power to really ground in the foundation in which one desires for their project, their life, the creation, the stability of what the new world has the potential to be. You know, what the new paradigm has the potential to be. And it has the potential to be that only when masculine and feminine are joined as one, and when one really sees through the potential traps of the new age. Because new age, like anything else, is another trend. So nothing is we're not looking for trends here. We're looking for reality. We're looking for truth. So what happens when the new age trend dies off? Well, we come back to the realities of existence, the realities of the bombings in Syria currently, the realities of the atrocities and, you know, the pedophile rings. We come to the realities of our own communities still lacking resources to thrive. You know, in Canada, up here, the world's #1 quality of life, but yet, you know, we look around and it doesn't necessarily seem that that's the case. So this time, and we've seen a dip in energy in the past 3 months a lot. You see this even reflected in the cryptocurrency market. And this it is all changing. It has already changed. And the launching of the bombings in Syria is another example of this. So there is both sides of the masculine currently manifesting, and in a sense they will be at war. And that war is within oneself, which as one integrates and knows the truth and comes to this, they will be able to take the clear, and they will already, and you are all already taking the clear masculine-oriented actions in conjunction with the balanced embracing of love, of light, of the new paradigm in which is available, of peace, you know, of purpose, of heart, centered nature, etc. But again, this can only really be true when the truth is realized. It is really the only way one is going to be able to know this balance for themselves, or one will just continue to read about it, or hear about it, or listen to it, and it may give them some, you know, clarity. But you know, this is the reality of many who've been seeking for a very long time, is that it isn't clear, right? So yeah, that's a great point, Dan. So, you know, yeah, like what we're speaking of is very relevant here when it comes to that focused aspect of realizing your true nature as the singular point of focus, and as that manifests in your day-to-day, it comes with the light of the foundation building of what it is that you're here to create, and being aligned with the people which also can support that, and which fill the pieces to the puzzle for you. because each person's different, and really for the feminine energy of community to be true, the masculine energy of action is to be fulfilling within that. So it's a beautiful dance. Yeah, you're welcome. So I hope that answers that for everyone. Another question here: can you explain the nature of fractal architecture? Well, if we just bring it to the practicality of our everyday moment existence, the supreme Godhead, the supreme Buddha, the supreme teaching is in this very moment, and it is in the dirt and grime, the pleasure and pain. It is this room. It is in this stormy like weather. It is this present experience. And so what we may view in the supreme teaching of some Buddhist text or some Hindu doctrine or some great secret teaching, what we view in that and what we see as that and what we project onto that is what we desire to see as just this. What we desire to recognize that supreme is actually here. It is the fractal of that supreme is here, and this is why the fractal of all religions is the same. The fractal of the construct, the architecture of every religion, every spiritual path is the same, but it's formulated and it appears in different ways. So you see the fractal of this energy everywhere. You see it in the geometries everywhere. As much as I don't want to get into sacred geometry much right now. For one, it's not my absolute space of expertise, and for two, there's a lot of illusion in the current New Age paradigm of sacred geometry, and that goes into far deeper topics than I want to touch on for today at least. But the simplistic viewpoint of what I'm getting at here is that let's not get lost in any of the externalization of what the fractal represents, and just come into the nature of representing and seeing that the fractal is ever present here and now of the Supreme Being. And that fractal is represented within each moment, within each existence, within each experience. And it's similar to the quote, "In the way you do one thing is the way you do everything." This is the perfect representation of the fractal energy and the fractal architecture of our universe. So we can just keep the questions coming. Hopefully that answers that for you. And Drew, if you want further clarification, feel free. We can go deeper, but I just didn't want to go too off topic. So just as a piece that I'm called to share with all of you, actually, if there's more questions coming in, I'll answer them. But as a piece I feel called to share, I've been in a certain space myself, of unfolding the breakdown of the approach that we have for the online university I've been speaking of, and in specific the Heart Centered Leader program. And so I'm in a place right now where I feel that I have amalgamated and brought together some of the most accelerator efficient means to realization, means to truth, and using these tools to really manifest what we desire to see in the world, in our own individual visions. And so the makeup of what we're headed into with this Heart Centered Leader program is derived around bringing these tools together in group format, like we're doing today, a little bit more private than just this, and in the format of you all having access to all of these resources that I've collected, and the individuals that are a part of that. So, we have a part of that with the Rasa transmission, some of the detoxing protocols, getting into the depth of heart-centered entrepreneurship with some specific individuals who have a lot of experience in high-level entrepreneurship, but bringing it down to the level of where many of each of us are at, and specifically from a place of conscious business, heart-centered business. And then other things like the tool of liberation, this remedy, which has been getting such interesting and beautiful feedback from those who've been taking it. But I'm really looking for feedback from all of you when it comes to what you really are desiring, and you can send me a message personally. I mean, I've been doing a lot of, as a form of application, if you will, to be a part of at least this initial group that we're going to be launching with. I've been doing one-on-one calls, so I suggest that for all of you who have not done that with me, then connect with me, and we can set that But it's truly a time where, because we're going to be starting this in the coming weeks, where we're just going to be getting together like this, like we have, furthering on specific topics, and bringing forward the tools in which you're all most resonant with. I've personally actually been in a space of relieving myself a little bit from the role as a teacher. It's played its part, and as much as that is still going to be active in response to where you're at, I truly believe that the majority of you in this space, in this time, are not necessarily needing the teaching from myself. You're simply maybe needing the pointers to the tools, the resources, the aspects of this path in which can be accelerated to such a degree in which it can be over. And by over, I mean truly beginning. And this is what I am really excited about in this time of really initiating a series of projects, and some of you may be involved in that, who knows. Maybe interconnectivity between projects of furthering the availability of these resources, and furthering the nature of creativity that desires to flow through me at this time, and transition out of personally where I'm at when it comes to teaching and providing satsang type of things of this nature. So there's no need to worry. It's I will still, of course, be here, but I am just voicing and communicating with all of you where it is headed and how excited I am for this Heart-Centered Leader program, which of course will still have me fully involved in that. But maybe as a this is connected with the message of today, is a true focus, a depth of focus, because this depth of focus, as we've outlined today, is really one in which brings all the responsibility back to oneself, and relieves the chains and the bonds in which one has to just not be fully engaged in life, engaged in their existence, and be enjoying life to whatever degree they desire to. And so wherever each of you are at a different point in that, potentially, some of you are in very similar stages. And so at least with the interest that, for this Heart-Centered Leader program, it's simply going to be continuing to interact with each of you, so that each of you can be provided the tools that you need to accelerate the realization of this truth, and then accelerate the process of your manifestation and filling in the holes and the pieces to that puzzle through the community of how those projects and things can be further ignited. This comes also, I've been very deep in the conversation of human design and understanding the nature of human design, which is a kind of like astrology, but a bit different, much more accurate, I find, or at least evolved for the times. And that giving a very clear picture as to how the interconnectivity of communities and groups can work with, and the place, the path, or the seat in which you each individually have, and how you are to walk that path or sit in that seat. And take care of that and only that, and let the other seats be taken by those who have that place as well. So this is something I felt called to share. Now, as a specific call to action, if any of you are interested and wanting to join in with the initial launch of this Heart-Centered Leader program, which is happening within the next 2 weeks, then schedule a time to chat with me. We can get into that. I'll give you all the details. And either way, I would suggest connecting with me. I'm only going to. I'm feeling it's probably till the end of April. I'll be doing this open, these open one-on-ones that I've been doing, the pay what you feel thing, because I'm certainly increasing my focus on some specific projects and things. But at least for now it's there. So take advantage of it. I'll make the link in the comments there. So great answer. Fractal nature of reality, different and separate, yet the same and connected. Yes. Hey Lauren, it's good to see you. Yeah, I would recommend everyone who's not here or just came in to rewatch. As much as a lot of juicy things that we went into today. It's generally juicy, so it's because of the connection of everyone here that makes it that way. So let's continue. If there's questions, I'm still open. I'm not going anywhere. And you can feel the energy in your heart, and if you can, just bring the attention there and just continue to remain there in tune here. One thing that I did hear about more recently through the work of Dr. Pillai. He's a realized being, and he was speaking about the nature of the new moon and full moon, and his perspective is a little bit different than what most of the New Age talks about when it comes to new moon being for manifestation, full moon being for releasing. His perspective is a little different in the sense that although full moon is for releasing and releasing of obstacles and things, the new moon is also for this, and it is really for the gaining of that clarity of intention. New moon is also very much for the connection with ancestral energy, and so we've talked about this a bit today, of connecting with your lineage, your energy, the image of the individual, person, place, you know that focus of the respect for the lineage of all times, but also connecting with the dead, meaning your past ancestors and elders. This is a doorway for that. And then full moon actually being a lot more prevalent for manifestation and starting of new projects and things of this nature. And in my personal experience, this has actually been more reflective, I would say, that the idea of making way, making room, releasing within the full moon time is very much the case when it comes to manifestation of igniting something new, because from making way, what ignites what wants to arise naturally comes forth, because it's always been there. It's just waiting, because there is no time space, so it is always existing. Your highest of purposes is always here. It may need certain circumstances or certain time imprints to happen for that ignition to fully bloom. This is true. But we can see that when we generally have a release of something, it is an opening for something new. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's not to say don't manifest new things around the new moon, but I would also really feel into if that's true, or if you're just igniting something new because it's the new moon. It's what we're pointing to here is it's very much about a tuning into, because if you truly are the supreme being, then it doesn't matter personally what I'm saying today about focus and all this shit, what any other teaching is saying about this or that, or what, it has nothing to do with that, because if it's the outer and then how is it here, we have to really inquire to, well, really it's just here, because yeah, sure, it's the pointer of the teaching, the pointer of the revelation, the pointer of the technique, but it has to pass through your own subjective perception anyways. So let's start there. Let's come back here, feel into this, and let go of all of the frameworks of the beliefs in which one believes they have about what things are and how things work, etc., perpetually, right? Because that's the initial thing in which one comes, maybe we talked about the matrix today, so as they come out of the matrix, they have to relearn and all. But then, even within that unfolding, the actuality of it is that one is getting supreme at their ability to perpetually relearn, perpetually let go, perpetually destroy everything that continues to arise, because it is only valid in the moment, and in the next moment it may be completely gone. This is the essence of the perpetual new revelation, where you become the prophet, the messenger, in which is the message or the teaching is flowing through, and because you're willing to make room, be empty. So I'm just going to do some admin type of things here. So I'm going to just share my scheduler here. So for those that want to schedule a time in the Facebook, then that is linked. I'm going to be releasing some deets on the next time for the next Rasa transmission. I know a lot of people have been asking about that, for those that maybe are not in the group thing that Nanda and Ramaji are doing. So that will be the next thing. Yeah, that's pretty much it, for right now. I am in a space of kind of beginning to open up into some conversations on certain projects, at least in Ottawa, and then also around. So there will be, an opening, at least for the initial community, for those who want to be involved in some of these things. I'm just at least planting the seed, but there will be more details soon. And there will be an event coming in Ottawa. We're looking at actually May 12th. Yeah, May 11th, 12th, potentially 13, for a flow of urban retreat style, similar to what we do with our gathering type of experiences, just a little bit longer and more
I have it in my mind. We'll let that unfold. So if there's further questions, then let's just open that up. I'll leave it open for like the last few minutes here. And if not, then not. As always, I always feel grateful for you to share this video if you found value from it. And how you found value from it can be in the comment of how you know when you share it. It's great. It's much better when you share with a comment. Yeah. So if there's no questions, then I will look to wrap this up. We can finish here with just a bringing of attention to the heart once again, and just a letting go of everything I've said today, everything we've talked about, all the questions that you've had, just a complete surrender of everything, putting it all on that altar of the flaming fire of life and just letting that burn. Just a perpetual focus on this sense of truth. And I will leave you here with that. So again, send me a message for the interest in some of the launch of the Heart Center Leader Program, if that's really of resonance in your heart. And feel free to schedule time, of course, with me for all those that have been connected and with us in these calls. It's been a blessing to really run these over this past little while, and they will continue, don't worry. But I'll leave you with that. Enjoy your night.